as we were saying, what Chiron in your chart shows you is your own kind of wound that you bring into this world with you, into this lifetime, that you are here to heal, if that makes sense. Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, the human design specialist.
And I'm Haley, the human design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Today we're diving into
Chiron.
Ooh.
Just one word. Chiron.
Chiron.
And really, we're going to talk about Chiron because we were debating whether to go into all the planets first, but I think Chiron is kind of important because lots of reasons, but Chiron in your chart, in the human design chart, is not visible on the body graph because it's not technically a planet. And so when the system was delivered to Ra, it was made clear that Chiron was not part of the chart. But some people, like Karen Curry Parker that I trained with, she always includes Chiron. And let's face it, I think in astrology, more and more people have been talking about it and what it means and what you can learn from it. And I would like to talk about it because I think besides being able to look at it as something in your own chart, as far as how it can help you, it's also something that I think that you're here to help other people with as well, which, we're finding that with our definition and our defined centers and gates, we know that these are the areas that we're going to help people with because it's the energy that's consistent in us, correct?
Yeah, it's what we're putting out there.
Yeah. And so with Chiron and what it represents in your chart and in your story is the same way. It's funny because it is referred to as the wounded healer, and it's funny in human design that it's not visible in your chart, but it has an effect. And that's quite often how we experience the energy of Chiron in our life, is we're not really aware of it, but it definitely has an effect on how we move through life and manage. So I thought we'd do a little background already. Oh my gosh. Okay.
What is Chiron?
Oh, wow. What a great question.
In the actual solar system.
Okay. So Chiron was just discovered in now I've heard 77, 78, 19, so say 77, 78. I'm not sure. I've heard two different. And it is this bumpy, misshapen rock out there in space. It could be a comet, planetoid, whatever, but it's not an actual planet, but it is of substantial size. Now, don't ask me where it's at because I don't rightly know.
So you know if it does it orbit? Do comets orbit? Yeah, because Halley's Comet comes back around.
It does have an orbit because one of the things we're going to talk about is a placement in your chart, which is astrology, and it's also in human design, of a Chiron return, which means where it comes back to the same place in the sky.
I have heard that one before.
Yeah, you've heard Chiron turn? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll hear these are different life cycles in astrology. You'll hear Saturn return, which your first Saturn return happens around anywhere between the ages like 28 to 30, 31, usually around 29, they say, which also coincides with certain life cycles of what profile line?
Oh, that's the Hermit. Well, no, not the Hermit, the role model.
Yes, the role
wrong one.
Yeah, the line 6. And so it's one of these life cycles. Another one you'll hear is the Uranus opposition, and that's another one. It's
quite the name.
It is, but that happens around the start of your 40s, and that is when, because it's a big planet, and it has a long orbit, but that's when Uranus is opposite to where it was when you were born in the sky.
Gotcha.
And then we have Chiron return, which happens around my age right now, anywhere between 49, 51, somewhere in there. And I give these broad ranges because you will see in certain charts, it'll like on genetic matrix, they can give you a pinpointed, like this is the exact moment that Chiron returns to where it was in the sky when you were born, right?
Hmm.
Um, but as I have been taught, and I certainly believe, is that since these are such big, large orbiting things, I don't feel like there's like one moment in time where it's going to like, you're going to feel the full effect. It's going to gradually come on and then
Yeah,
gradually dissipate these themes and energies you'll be
that
dealing
makes
with.
sense because I mean it's not just gonna show up in the point where you were born, like when you were born in the same point in the sky. It's gonna move through it. So
Right.
yeah, that makes sense.
When the big long train comes into the station, it takes more than one point in time for it to get there. And then it takes a few minutes for it to leave too. So same concept, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Chiron was discovered, like I said, around 77, 78. And in astrology, they say that when a planet is discovered is
Hmm.
when it starts to have effect in your astrological chart, which, well, why would you know it otherwise? But it's interesting because in the human design system, it was delivered that when they discovered the outer planets in 1781 is when our energy system changed. And that's when those splits occurred where we became from seven centered beings to nine centered beings, which is what human design is all about.
In 1781.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh.
Finally got that telescope strong enough to point it in the right direction, I guess. So Uranus was discovered in 1781. And then, shockingly, Pluto and, well, Neptune wasn't until 1846, and Pluto not till 1930.
Well, Pluto's out there and really tiny, so they need a big old microscope, not a microscope, big old telescope.
I was going with it. Mm-hmm. Sure they do. So yeah, it's big. And so Chiron is out in the far reaches of the solar system as well, because which makes sense because the Chiron return happens at roughly 50, 50 years,
Mhm.
51 years. So that means it would take 50 years to orbit the sun. So it's pretty big. I mean, it's pretty far out there. So Chiron is out there, way out in space, but it's big enough that it does have an effect on us, just as the other outer planets do. They, but it is going to be more of a generational effect because, like I said, if it takes that long to orbit the sun, it's very long life cycles. And some people are even saying that you could almost start to look at Chiron now as a midway point as we start our longevity stretches for some of us, not all of us. Right now, most people say Uranus opposition because that's around that 40-year mark is most, which, like I said, it's a lot of, midlife crises, but we're getting too much into life cycles here. So let's just talk about one in particular, which
Give
is
me the
Chiron.
backstory of Chiron.
Chiron. So all the planets are named after the gods, right? Not the gods. Roman
They're
gods,
named,
we
yeah,
determine
Roman gods.
mythology. And so Chiron was a centaur. You know what a centaur
Ooh,
is?
that one is half horse, half man.
Correct. And he was rather gifted. They said he was a healer, and he was pretty well liked guy, horse.
Cool.
But anyways, so I'm not really going to get into his full background, but basically what happened was the centaurs, they were also warriors, and one of Chiron's good friends was Hercules, which we've all heard of Hercules, the mighty Hercules, and they fought many times together side by side in battle, as the story goes. And in one particular battle where it was quite confusing what was going on, uh, Chiron was accidentally shot by a poison arrow from
Oh,
Hercules
oh,
in the
rude.
leg. Yeah. And so um, it caused excruciating amount of pain because it was a poison arrow, left him, kind of incapacitated with the leg there. And the problem is that a centaur is not mortal. they are like gods themselves, so they
Hmm.
cannot die. And so he was in this state of agony and disability most of his existence after that point, because he kept trying to find a way to heal himself, but he could not. And it was a source of shame for him because he was known as a healer and he could heal other people and he was really good at it, but he could not find a source of healing for himself. And so he suffered for hundreds of years in this state. I know it's terrible and it's
That's
terribly
very
sad.
sad.
So, one version I read said, well, he just decided that he would become human so that he could die, basically. But in researching a little bit further, we just found an interesting story about Prometheus, which I thought was kind of
Yes.
cool. So, Prometheus was another god who liked man, and he thought man was pretty smart and pretty clever. So, he gifted man with the gift of fire, which he was not allowed to do. He stole it from Mount Olympus. And so he was punished by being chained to a rock in the underworld. And sadly, every night, an eagle came down and ate his liver while he was
And
still
then it
alive,
regrew.
which
And
is
then it
horrible.
regrew.
And then it regrew. And so it was quite tragic and horrible. And
All because
so,
he stole fire.
well, he gave it to man without permission. So thanks, Prometheus. So story goes that Jupiter kind of took pity on him, who was the Jupiter was aka Zeus, took pity
Mhm.
on him and said, tell you what, if you could get another god to come take your place for just one night, and then that god would become a ghost and die and kind of wander the underworld as if he were mortal. If you can get one of somebody else to sacrifice themselves basically for you, I'll let you go. And so, as you can imagine, one thing I've always heard about the gods is they were pretty freaking selfish.
Oh, they were horrible.
Very selfish. And
That's
then,
why people were always trying to appease the gods.
oh, I know. And oh my gosh, there's that show on Cinemax, I think it was American Gods, which is like these, the gods like are in modern day and they're kind of hiding in America. But yeah, they talk about this mythology a lot. Yeah, they're not like, they're terrible.
They were so
Always toying
hateful
with
and
people and
angry and
yeah.
yeah, just harsh.
Yeah. So, yeah. So poor Prometheus is in a pickle, and so is Chiron. So Chiron,
How okay, so like how is Prometheus supposed to get anyone if he's chained to a rock in the underworld?
well, it probably went out in like the Mount Olympus newsletter. Hey guys, we got
Looking
a
for
situation.
volunteers.
You know what Prometheus did, and I am not an unmerciful god, said Jupiter, looking sideways. So, if any of you fools want to take his place and become a wandering ghost in the underworld as a poor mortal, save him.
Sign up right here.
No takers. I guess word got out. One way or another.
He told Prometheus told the eagle that ate his liver every night. He's like, "Hey, can you go spread the word?"
Okay. So word got out. Chiron heard this and thought, you know what? Why should both of us suffer? Like, I want to die because I am sick and tired of this. And if I can die and become like a human wandering the underworld, anything's got to be better than the pain I'm living in now, which was constant for him, not just once a night. It was constant.
Yeah.
And so that's what he did. And hearing this, when Jupiter heard this, he was so impressed by his behavior because probably he's like, hey, none of us could have done that. He did more than make good on his promise to set Prometheus free. He also liberated Chiron, not just from the rock, but also from his torment of his own wounded body, and placed him among the stars as the constellation Sagittarius.
Oh,
Hmm. So what's interesting in this story is that it was a selfless act that led to his healing. It was using his pain to help someone else that gave him his ultimate liberation. So, like as we were saying, what Chiron in your chart shows you is your own kind of wound that you bring into this world with you, into this lifetime, that you are here to to heal, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So we all have this, and it's something inside of us. It's usually something that makes us feel shame or insecure, or you heard the term new level, new devil. You know, you think you get one. You've never heard that term?
Mm-mm. Never heard
Oh,
that.
bless your heart. It means that you've not had to do much healing. What it means is that as life goes on and you find things that challenge you, if you do the work and you know try to learn from it and heal from it and everything else, you'll get to a new level and then something else shows up. And a lot of times it's because there is this underlying theme, the thing we can't see, that is affecting us, and it's going to just keep showing up. But the beauty of it is that as we each time learn how to work with it or master it, we become, well, masterful at it. We become
Hmm.
those that can show the way to others of how to deal with this pain or this wound or whatever. So, you know, that's the gist of it. So it shows you not only where your wound is, but also where you have the capacity to also be divine, because, you know, Chiron was human and divine. And so yeah, you heal the wound and there you are. So,
So
mhm.
you said it's not really in your chart, but then how do you know what it is?
Well, it is in your natal, like, astrological chart. Like if you pull
Uh-huh.
up on any astrology site, that will give you your straight astrology natal chart that shows you all your planets, the signs, the rising houses, and all that other stuff. The rising houses, the houses, the rising signs. You know, you can see what an astrologer I am. Uh,
I had no
it'll
idea.
tell
I was
you.
just going along with it.
Yeah, it'll tell you. What I say is it's so in astrology terms, it's present in your chart, but in the human design body graph, there is not a placement for it.
Gotcha.
So it won't be an activated gate on your chart. Like Jupiter is an activated gate on your chart, but Chiron will not be. But there
So to
are,
have
mhm,
more of an understanding of it, you would have to pull up an astrological natal chart.
yes. Or if you have access to genetic matrix, I don't know if it's in the free version or not. I don't think it is, but I think they do even have like a day pass or something if you just wanted to, or you pay $9 for a month and you can get every chart you wanted, and then not use it again. Or you could be like me and just still keep paying $9 a month because you're obsessed with learning
Everyone's chart.
everything. So, yeah. So, and being a larger planet, it's going to affect like certain groups of people at certain times. As far as, okay, straight astrology, another good resource is what I'm looking at a lot is cafeastrology.com has Chiron sign tables from 1920 to 2045. So it will give you from 1926 to 2045 exactly when Chiron enters a new sign.
Oh,
So, like, I know that my Chiron is in Aries. So I was born November 1970.
what
And
is my Chiron?
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So Chiron was in Aries from 1969 to 1976. And so what we're going to look at today is we're not going to look at all the gates in the human design chart in Aries, because that would, or in Chiron, because that would be 64 gates. That's too much to talk about. But when you do get a chart in genetic matrix, it will show you what gates Chiron was in the moment you were born, and also the 88 degrees before. So you may have one gate, it might be in the same gate, or it might be two. I
Hmm.
have two. Uh
So you were right on the transition point, I guess.
yes. I have two gates because there was a transition, because I think I did the math
I think
uh
we said it
on
was
my
like a
own term.
quarter of a year.
No, it's a year, it's roughly a year and a quarter. So there's 64 gates. Chiron takes about 51 years to return to its original position in your chart. And so that makes it roughly a year and a quarter in each gate. So my design side, 3 months or so before I was born, it switched over from another gate. So I had two. But a lot of people will have one, but it is possible in your human design chart to have two. But we're not going to talk about the each gate placement of Chiron and the themes there. But what I will do is create a little cheat sheet of sorts that will be kind of a chart that shows you when Chiron was in what sign for like the past, I don't know, we can go back. How old do you think people are listening to this? Maybe a little bit older than me. I don't
Maybe.
know. So we'll go back maybe to 1960 to present. And then also we'll try to put in there the gates associated with those years. So
Mm,
I can kind of do a lot of the quick and dirty highlights for you, and I'll make I'll make a little download of that and put that in the show notes so you can look at that. So, anyways,
yeah.
but moving on, like I said, we will just focus on the zodiac sign that your Chiron is in your chart, because this is
Hmm.
going to be an overarching theme that then also will play out. If you're looking at the astrological components, it plays out in areas like what house it sits in, which are other layers and themes of astrology that I don't really deal with. But you will also then be able to see the gate or gates that it sits in, how it ties in with the overarching wound theme of Chiron.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So we're going to start at the beginning. Chiron in Aries. And note, Chiron is in Aries right now until I think I saw next several years. It's because it stays in Aries about 7 years. So Chiron in Aries is really about the individual and individuality. So it's the wound of the self, the individual. Okay. They say this can be a more difficult and painful placement for Chiron because it's really directly related to who you are as a person, your identity.
Okay.
And so Aries is typically associated with being confident and bold. It's the beginning of the zodiac. So it's like you think about this young, headstrong energy of like, I can do anything, I can conquer the world because I know everything. I'm young and take me on. It's very
Nothing
fiery
can hurt
energy.
me.
Nothing can hurt me. I'm invincible. But Chiron and Aries is exactly the opposite of that. So it's more feeling like these people might feel like they have a lack of really a sense of their true core, sense of their own value and worth. Like they can lack self confidence and might, innately feel that something's just wrong with them, that they just don't have something that other people have. So it's very much tied to value and worth. So these people can struggle with the sense of not really knowing that they add value just because they exist. It's not because of anything they have to prove or do to add value. They just are valuable. They could tend to be people pleasers as part of this core wounding, putting other people's needs ahead of theirs, and therefore really basing their worth on what they do for other people. Okay.
A lot of validation
A little
outside of
validation.
things,
Yeah.
outside of themselves.
Yeah. And you'll see as we go through these, a lot of these are kind of variations on the same theme of like, you are just inherently valuable because you are who you are, but we all
Right.
take it in different ways. So these are people that can value other people's opinions of themselves over their own opinion of themselves. And yeah, they might not even really know what their own opinion is anymore. They'll take on so much of other people's opinions in order, so they lose their individuality when this is supposed to be their strength.
Makes sense.
So yeah, because they can be afraid to take a stand and stand for what they believe in and what they know about themselves because they feel they'll be not loved. So yeah, there's a lot of stifling of one's own individuality, and it may have even played out, in your childhood or wherever where you maybe tried to stand out, it didn't work, and so it can really, really stick it to you with that wound. So, but with this comes the gift of recognizing the value inherent in others, their worthiness, what they bring to the table as themselves, as their individual. And so you can be someone who really helps encourage those towards self-empowerment and kind of championing them and letting them, helping them see their own value, helping people with asserting themselves, becoming more independent, and can make them very fiery, passionate leaders or mentors in that space of championing the individual. So I'm just going to say, kind of feeling that trajectory in my life. For sure. Been there, done all that, doing it all the time, and what I feel led to do. So I guess there's some merit to this, especially as you get older. Especially, I mean, shit, I'm in my Chiron return right now. So,
Yep.
hello, here I am
Hello.
on a podcast, helping others discover their own value, worth, truth, and empowering them be themselves and the awesome individual they are.
Wow.
Okay, so moving on. Any thoughts on that before I move forward?
Nope.
Nope.
Next.
So, next, Chiron in Taurus. So, the Taurus Chiron wound would be a wound of loss or a feeling of lack, because Taurus is all about really the material world, material possessions, routines, stability, things of this world, having things. And so, the Taurus, the bull, very solid, steady, grounded, kind of stubborn individual. They're not all stubborn, just the ones we know. But so when your Chiron is in Taurus, then there's going to be an insecurity inherently in one or more of these areas. So, like I said, there is going to be this feeling of lack somewhere that they can't quite ever get, I guess, mastery over. Not mastery over, but they're always going to feel like as long as they're trying to get more, become more stable, or get more possessions, or have more things, thinking that's going to fill up this feeling this wound creates, they find that it's really not the truth. Yes, I always wonder, well, what the hell is going on? So person with this Chiron wound will be afraid of losing something, whether it's safety, money, possessions, abundance, love, any of these things. There's going to be, like I said, it could be in one or more areas. And so this would be where you could also look at your gates, see if maybe there's a theme there, if your Chiron is in Taurus, around what those gates themes are as well. And they say that if you were to look at the astrology of it, would be to look at what house it sits in, because there's 10 houses that they sit in, and they all have different themes as well. So many layers. But again, human design is not astrology. We're just being influenced here, helping you kind of decode some of your chart. So this may mean that people with Chiron and Taurus might go to great lengths to make themselves feel secure. There may be a little bit of hoarding, greediness, this, like I said, this sense that they need, that something could be gone at any moment. So they're always trying to have more.
Hold it close.
Right? Mm-hmm. So like I said, they could be very frugal or tight with their possessions, because they're
tight with their cash.
They're afraid they're not going to have enough. So you really have to, with this wound, begin to understand that true security comes through trusting yourself and trusting the real source of abundance, and everything is universe and source, and that you have to enhance that connection to spirit so that you can feel that you are supported at all times, and that you can relax and not worry that there's not enough, because there's always enough. So the gift that comes with that then, as you begin to heal that, is that you can then help others feel that more sense of grounding and feeling solid in earth, without it being something that comes from the outside or possessions. It comes from the inside, to help people get connected to what's really valuable and permanent, which is your own sense of, stability within yourself. So that's Taurus.
Makes me think of Ferdinand the Bull.
Well, it is Taurus the Bull. Yeah.
I like Ferdinand.
Big old sweetheart. Okay, so Chiron and Gemini. If this is where Chiron sits in your chart, this is the wound of words and communication. Because Gemini is besides being the twin, is also a sign about communication. And so this wound here centers around communication, maybe feeling unable to properly communicate, like having the inability to say what they really want to say. They might also feel that they're not smart enough, they're unintelligent. They might actually think of themselves as stupid and feel different from others because they just feel like they can't effectively, communicate what it is they want to communicate. And so even if they are highly educated, they might not feel they ever have enough knowledge because they can't get it out effectively, that there's
Hmm.
something wrong with them, that they can't get it across what they're trying to get across. You would think I had this. So they might actually put themselves in a place where they, like I said, they think other people are just smarter than them, better communicators. So they might feel they don't measure up, or on the other side, they might also tend to look at people who they see as little better educated, better communicators. They might try to actually tear them down, like a jealousy kind of thing. Could
Mm,
be, could be. I don't know.
yeah.
So, if you do have this placement in Chiron, it's important to realize that your intelligence is probably a different kind of intelligence that maybe hasn't been really seen before, which is why it comes off as, because Gemini is also about new and technology and things like that,
Mm,
communicating. Um, but it is a very special kind of intelligence that society as a whole might not recognize, but it is needed. And obviously, it's needed because you have it. You're here for a reason.
duh.
So, learning to be honest and speak your truth and trust that you will be received, and trust that what you have to say and what you know is useful and helpful. A lot of work there, again, around these themes of self trust, self acceptance, love. It may be easier to kind of start getting there by expressing yourself in different ways through music or through art or some other things
Mm,
that's not just language. So that's one way to look at that. So then, once you do begin to heal these wounds, the gift that comes with that is helping others embrace their skills at communicating their gifts and helping them really claim their right to be heard and understood. All right, so Chiron and Cancer. Do you remember? I should be like, yeah, there you go. You're
it's a
making crab
crab.
claws.
I'm making crab hands.
Should be asking you to material or participate here by telling me if you know what the
It's the questions. It's the
questions.
questions. It's the
Well,
can. It's the. I about said it's the cancer with the crab hands. It's the crab.
it's the crab. Yes. So the wound here is the wound of family, and because cancers are very much homebodies. That's the shell, the
Mm.
crab. They want to be in their
Mm.
safe space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Home is everything. And so they carry this wound of feeling being unlovable,
Oh.
or they also carry the wound that they may either have been or will be abandoned. So there's core feelings of loneliness, emotional pain, maybe emptiness. And they know that love, some ways it can show up is you may know that love exists, but somehow it just isn't for them. I just haven't found it yet. Like it's this feeling of being unlovable. So sad, isn't it?
What's the saddest one so far?
Poor crap. Not to make light of anyone's Chiron and Cancer. But so this may cause people with this wound to tend to withdraw from love, or they may pursue relationships with unattainable people, which kind of reinforces that idea that there's love, but it's just not meant for them. It's just something they won't have, and that they
Mm.
might always be alone. A little self-sabotaging there. Or they could also just kind of get involved but never be fully involved, not really allowing themselves to enter into the relationship for who they are because they'll just be abandoned. It's that whole, I'll just hold off
No
here.
one will ever love me.
Yeah, they don't want to be abandoned. So, um,
Sad.
it's sad. So again, you'd have to like look at it of, how to heal that would be to realize that one, again, the self-love piece, but also to know that um really when you have that secure sense of self and your place in the world, you never really feel alone. You
Hmm.
always have yourself. And it sounds simple, I'm sure. I mean, if this is not your wound, then I could say that rather glibly, but it's it's it does take work, which is why, I mean, these themes come up when you're my age,
Yeah.
51, that you finally have the opportunity to say, okay, have I really looked at these areas of my life? Is this something I want to keep operating blindly from, or do I want to, or have I done something about it in order to help others with it? So the healing gift here with the Chiron in Cancer would be kind of providing that loving mother energy, because they say mother energy because I think it's, that's what's considered the more, unconditional love is the
Hmm.
mother's love, and offering this stability, nurturing, understanding what people need to help make them feel safe and secure. Okay, so moving on from Cancer. So Chiron in Leo. Now, this is the wound of talent.
The lion.
The lion.
Leo the
Well,
lion.
Leo the lion is very proud, likes a lot of attention, a lot of
He's got
recognition.
he's got big hair.
Yeah,
The bigger the hair, the closer to Gus.
Gus. So, with this placement of Chiron in Leo, people may not feel recognized or noticed for their specialness. They may feel like they just kind of fade into the background, like they're not talented enough, or, they're just kind of unremarkable, which is, of course, not true. They may try to show their talent to others and prove themselves as having a special talent. It doesn't mean you have to be like a singer or a dancer, but just, always trying to show what it is your specialness is, but deep down don't really believe it. This can also lead them to not really join in with life or with others at times, because deep down they feel like they don't have anything to contribute, any kind
Mm,
of specialness that would, why do they need me there? What do I have to contribute?
I'm just an ordinary Joe.
Just a Joe. And so it's really about the recognition, respect, and I guess, being loved, of course. Again, another theme. You can see it all comes down to one thing: knowing your own self-worth and love.
Yeah.
So these are people that might try to prove they're worthy of their existence through the talent, what they offer, something again outside themselves. Um, this could lead them to maybe try a little too hard to get attention. Or, like I said, they may feel so unworthy of attention that they just disappear. So there can be extremes of this. So they feel unimportant, unseen, dismissed. So they need to become the person that recognizes their own worth and value for just, again, existing, for being here. And that to really be their own source of self recognition and praise, and valuing themselves for who they are and not what they do, which we could all learn that.
Yeah.
So, therefore, the gifts that can be associated with this is helping others and inspiring others to express their own talents or creative genius by doing it in their own way, in their own expression,
Hmm.
and help guide them, from this place of compassion and understanding that it could be very vulnerable to share your talents and realize that inherently they're valuable just because they're there.
Hmm. Everyone has their own little thing to contribute.
But I guess if your Chiron's in Gemini, or not Gemini, Leo,
Leo.
you might struggle with knowing what that is. But you will be good at helping others do it
I'm
once.
not in Leo, and I feel like I struggle with that.
Right? I mean, I think we all have certain aspects. I mean, because even if we're not born under that sign. It's kind of like having definition and openness. So your Chiron may not be in that sign, but like right now, Chiron in the placement in the sky is in Aries. So there's these bigger things, like we said, they have more universalizing aspects to it, meaning that there is going to be this sense on the earth right now of struggling with worth or all those things because it's in
Thanks,
Aries.
Aries.
But I mean, this is also a time right now where it's like the individual understanding its own power and worth is becoming really, really paramount in shifting the narrative in our whole
It's
evolution
probably a,
here.
good place to be in for the upcoming elections and such.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
You'll definitely derail me there. So, moving on to Chiron and Virgo. This is the wound of perfection. And so these are,
what is Virgo's
well, Virgos are kind of known for being very kind of detail oriented, very much.
what is their little symbol thingy?
Virgo's the virgin. The virgin.
Let's double check the Googles. What is the Virgo symbol? Maiden.
A virgin.
Yeah, well, maiden isn't necessarily a virgin.
Ew.
Virgo is represented by the virgin or maiden carrying a shaft of wheat. That is an M with an inward twist, symbolizes the introspection and modesty that's inherent in Virgo.
Yeah, modesty, I guess.
So you're right.
So in the Chiron and Virgo wound, there is this fundamental fear that they were somehow made incorrectly or imperfectly, and that there's something fundamentally wrong, and you worry that others can see it and you can't.
These are some deep wounds.
Well, I mean, it's a core wound. I mean, they say that, these are things that a lot of them just you have picked it in this, let's say, picked it in this lifetime, the time you were born, whatever it is, the things you need to work on, because these are themes that could be, which we'll see in some of these other ones as we move forward, actually come from past life experiences. These are more karmic wounds, things that you have to, just like in your present life, you have to keep learning them. Hopefully over time you master them and then you'll just go on to the next one. Oh, a big learning
Just
arena.
go on to the next wound.
Yeah. So this carries an energy of always trying to fix themselves, trying to achieve perfection, but ultimately feel there's something wrong and feel that you would have to actually change who you really are in order to be acceptable, because the true you, the true them, is either broken or imperfect. They're just not perfect. And so there's a lot of self-criticism here. And that could also leak out in how they treat others, because a lot of times people who are really self-critical tend to be critical of others as well. You imagine if you had this in Chiron and Virgo, and you have some of these other placements like Gate 18 or the whole channel, where it's all about correction and, seeing what needs to be refined and fixed. It could be a lifelong struggle with giving yourself some slack.
I'm always trying to fix things.
You are. So this need for perfection can result in a lot of controlling behavior of their environment, their relationships, their schedule, how they look, all these things. But they discover, as most people do with trying to control things outside themselves, that even if you have control of everything in your life, you're still going to have this feeling of being flawed or broken, or there's no perfect,
No.
So it's unattainable. So the answer is not in trying to control more. The answer is in learning to accept. And that's learning to recognize where you're vulnerable, what your vulnerabilities are, and accept them and embrace them, and not try to turn away from them, hide them, or control everyone around you so you think they won't see it. Therefore, the gifts associated with this, like I said, is helping others see where they are possibly being too perfectionistic or self-critical, and help release themselves from this really self-made prison by embracing themselves as they are and their imperfect natures. Because, like I said, there is no perfect. I mean,
No.
that's my favorite thing to remember: perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
Made perfectly imperfect. All right.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of things, yeah, you can, even like I said, if it's not your particular wound, everybody, we can certainly learn from all of these
Oh
things
yeah.
because I'm sure we all touch on them at one point or
I
another.
felt a little attacked in some of those.
Not here to attack, here to inform.
A little
Okay.
called out.
Okay, so Chiron in Libra. So this is the wound of relationships. So Libra is the balancing the scales. It's all
Yeah.
about balance. And
Libertas.
yeah, and so this is a wound of feeling like there's something missing most in your life, most likely in the form of like a mate or a soulmate, that there is some missing half of you out there that you just can't seem to find. And so they might try to incessantly try to find the right person or fill that void with other things that makes them feel like there's not a piece of themselves missing. But that leaves them feeling a little off balance because of this search for that. So there's a great sense of this fear of loneliness that they'll never find that other missing half. But again, the remedy for that is finding that your relationship with yourself is the only real relationship that you need, yourself and source. Because, I mean, people are always going to, I think, transition in and out of your life, even if they're with you your whole life. We eventually all are separated. It's just the way things are. I mean, you think about it. If you tried to always, uh, I think having pets shows it. It's like
Oh, stop.
what a testament is like of like love for the sake of love without looking forward to the future because you're always gonna outlive them. God bless us. So
Stop.
hard, so hard.
She's sitting up right next to me and I can't.
Live forever, Bailey. um, so people with the Chiron and Libra might always be trying to complete themselves through other people. You know, that whole you complete me thing. And so this can be actually more difficult because they feel like, well, they need to be in a relationship, but then when they get in a relationship, it kind of fuels this like wound even more of feeling alone in the relationship, or it's not the right relationship, or it's just not complete kind of thing. And so they could create conflict in their relationships because of this wound. And they fear that they're always going to be alone or incomplete. And they could also become people pleasers, put their others, people's needs in front of theirs, but also almost wear like a mask of what they think people want from them and not who they really are. Um, so like I said, if you just realize that your ultimate quote unquote soulmate is yourself. I think we talked about the soulmate thing before. I think we have many soulmates. I don't think we have just one. I think
Oh
we
yeah.
have all kinds
And
of people.
they're not just intimate either.
No. um, Learning to heal this wound within yourself of not finding your value and your completeness through other people, you then help other people claim their own wholeness, empower themselves, and make healthy relationship choices based on what they need, not what they think the other people need, basically. Okay. So, Haley, Chiron in Scorpio, the wound of control.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. This is a wound around control, and it is a control problem that blocks them from developing trust naturally in love and relationships. It is putting your trust in control instead of putting your trust in people's positive intentions or authentic love. So you're kind of trying to control the narrative. It's a wound that means they need to either control others or be controlled. And this can show up physically, spiritually, in all aspects, you know, or one aspect or more than one aspect. So there are always going to be at least some area in these individuals' lives that they feel like they either require control, like they need to be in control, or they will just completely give up control as well. So, again, if you think about some of these things we talk about with these Chiron themes, can either be triggered earlier in life, or they could actually be things held over from maybe past life experiences or traumas. And from what I read a lot about this was that, especially with this Scorpio placement, because Scorpio is got a lot of, I think, confusion around it in general. It's about transformation and mutation and like death and rebirth kind of thing. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
the narratives around Scorpio. So there's always this a lot of mystery and kind of darkness, I think, around it. And so a lot of what I was reading about this was saying some of these issues around control can actually be from traumas experienced in other lifetimes where there was no control. There was something happened that was completely out of their control. And so in this lifetime, it still plays out, or in even in previous lifetimes, of not trusting that they won't be hurt or somehow taken advantage of or punished or whatever. It's like may not be rational. It's just these core wounds, a lot of these core wounds, none of them are rational. They're very much like, where did that come from?
Uh-huh.
Um, so these traumas could have followed them from that. So they have maybe some emotional walls up. I don't know you other than being your mom. Whether you have trust issues or not with certain people.
I don't think
Anyways,
so.
so it doesn't really matter like where this perceived maybe trauma comes from or why they feel the need to control by it doesn't I think a lot of things in healing work does with us that, you might want to look back and see, well, where did it come from? When did this start happening? Which can be helpful in healing things, but at the same time, you also need to just look forward and be like, okay, do I have this core wound, this feeling of not trusting others' life, this feeling that I need to control things? Okay, well, how can I like heal this? How can I turn this around? And so really just to move forward, you just really have to realize that you are ultimately in control of yourself and that you don't need to control others or be controlled. You can trust your own sense of power and control, that you don't have to give it away or receive it from others in order to be powerful. You can have your own power. So self-empowerment. Now, the gift with this placement could be, helping empowering others in their own sense of self and control and power, helping them set healthy boundaries, guiding them through their own traumas and experiences, connecting with their own sense of power. I think I just said that, trusting themselves. And remember, now, these are things that I think a lot of times we talk about gifts and what we can offer, like we're supposed to do something with this in our work or whatever, which we certainly can. You certainly can if you want to, if you feel really led to, but it also could just be the gift you bring to the world in your just everyday life of helping someone feel that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is the one I was going to tell you next one, Sagittarius, because we were talking about your brother,
I don't
who
know
I
if I
know
agree
will
with the
never
Scorpio one.
listen. Yes, who I know will never listen to this podcast because he doesn't even want to hear me talk about human design.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Chiron and Sagittarius is the wound of belief. Beliefs, a sense of meaning, makes it difficult for them to believe in anything. Like, they can be people that can be very good at logically thinking about beliefs, but they may feel like they're on a never ending search to actually discover their own beliefs. Like, nothing feels permanent. They don't know what the purpose of life is, and no matter how hard they try, they can't seem to find it. Because Sagittarius does have a lot of notes to it about this quest for meaning and understanding, right? What the meaning of life is. So it's a wound of feeling disconnected from beliefs and truth and not actually knowing what they believe or if there's anything worth believing in, which we laugh because my son told me several years ago he's an atheist. Which I'm not laughing at that. I think it's fine. I was just
No, it's
like,
just That's how spot on this is.
Well, it was also ironic. I was like, Ian, how can someone with has a mother like me who's so like spiritual and feels connected to source be an
How
atheist? He's
can you
like,
be atheist?
I totally understand it. He doesn't, um, like it says here, he doesn't identify or like he doesn't think that there's any belief system out there that holds any real value in the
Yeah.
sense that I think he's more of a I think people at times confuse atheism with not believing what being agnostic, which is more like not believing in religious structures. And um
Mm,
I mean, they may say there isn't a God because they don't believe in the way it's played out in the world, of
yeah.
how God is represented, especially in our freaking culture, as this
Christianity.
judgmental man on a cloud that's telling us, we can buy guns, but we can't have abortions. So, whatever.
Oh,
Anyways, back on track to Sagittarius. So these are people that might feel that life is meaningless, pointless. You might feel that maybe there is a point, but they just can't figure out what it is. Nothing just seems to line up for them in that way. And so they could tend to avoid thinking about it at all. Like they don't
yeah.
want to have the conversations. They don't want to worry anymore about trying to find the meaning. So they'll just ignore it. They're like, and just go on feeling that
Next,
disconnected.
please.
Yeah. Or they could go to any lengths, again, the other extreme of doing everything they can to find meaning by, relying on others and who knows, maybe end up in a cult.
Ian, please don't join a cult.
I don't think so.
No.
But these people would always be searching for these answers, like what is the connection? What helps them feel connected? It's what
Mm,
do I line up with? And so it's the sense of separateness that can only be healed through really accepting and assimilating again the parts of the self and understanding and constructing their own meanings and beliefs about life and experience. So life's a journey, and we don't always know what the purpose and the meaning is. You kind of discover it as you go. And so that's how you find meaning, is by going through it, which is why I said when he told me he thought he was atheist, I said, that's fine. I said, I just asked him if he, I remember asking the conversation, I was like, well, do you believe in love? Like, do you love me? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you think I love you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, then that's all I need.
that's good enough for me.
That's all, it's like, because I think if someone can just feel that sense of
Hmm.
love, what else do you need? I mean, that's because that's what I think it all is, anyhow. So, again, healing gift here, or the gift that this brings when you have the healing through this is helping others kind of find their own meaning through the adventure of life and finding their own purpose in their own lives, just as it is, and not necessarily what other people say about it. Moving on.
Who we got next?
We got a couple more. We're in Capricorn. Chiron and Capricorn, the wound of recognition. This one's kind of similar to the wound in Leo, the one about talent.
Mm. Hmm.
Um, but it's more of a need for achieving. And
Mm.
which your dear Presley is a Capricorn sun sign, so
Oh, of course he is.
you're probably familiar, yeah, with some of these themes here of achievement and
Yes.
being recognized. So the wound here would be feeling unrecognized or unnoticed, unheard, no matter how hard they try, which is kind of similar
Mm.
to that, talent
The
one.
Leo. Yeah.
The wound here is that all they really want is respect,
Mm.
and they just want to get noticed and heard, but it's also the one thing they just can't seem to get. With this wound, they work really super hard, sometimes even involving themselves in causes like for social status, well-being, public well-being, that thing, kind of this outwardly like, look at all I do for the world kind of
Mm.
thing, and not even really maybe care about so much about the work. It's more about being recognized for doing the work. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
This wound carries a lot of ambition with it. Again, maybe misplaced motivation here for that ambition. Really, it's just trying to get recognized. But feeling like a failure at the same time. It's terrible.
Jeez.
um like I said, so say these could be people that from the outside look like really hardworking individuals, but they're trying so hard and working so hard because they just don't feel seen or recognized. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of a bad loop to be in. They also believe that if they give their life, Capricorn's also about structure. And if they have enough structure, they could, achieve what they want. But it's really, again, looking to the outside world to find their value, their self-esteem in how others perceive them and what they can achieve and do, and status, that kind of thing. So working on healing this would be, again, finding yourself as your own source of well-being, your sense of self, your self-esteem, listening to your own inner voice and trusting that and discovering that and recognizing yourself. So they have a gift of also supporting others by providing guidance, strategy, and helping them create order and structure in their lives. It's not so much about teaching people how to be recognized, because that's not how it works. But yeah, so that's Capricorn. Okay, I think two more. So Chiron in Aquarius, which is a wound of belonging, which again, this is kind of marrying that Cancer theme of family. This one is about community, not just the family, but belonging to a community of people. So they might feel they're not ever really connected to a group or community, might feel self-conscious in a group setting, like everybody around them all has something that brings them together, and you may be there, but you never really feel part of the group. You feel like there's something that makes you not belong.
Been there.
Yeah. And Aquarius is a sign that is known for standing out, being different, being quirky, kind of. I think Aquarius is kind of that, they're seen as like these airy, spacey, kind of like, ooh, age of Aquarius. So Chiron and Aquarius, like I said, they might feel disconnected, don't really belong in their community. And so it is the sign of, like I said, being different or quirky. So these people want to belong, but feel like they never quite belong. And they may think it's because they're different or weird or whatever. Even when they are in community and are like embraced by the community, they don't actually like necessarily feel it. Like they still have this shame, this core wound of like, I just don't belong. They don't really accept me.
Right. Yeah.
But
Well, they're called wounds for a reason.
yeah. So what these people tend to look at their own uniqueness as what is actually what separates them from others, which is, again, would cause some behaviors to maybe not, do that, try to hide themselves. They are meant to be different, but they might hide that because they want to be accepted. They may also self-sabotage in relationships so they can reject others, so they're not rejected, so they can kind of hide. So to heal that, of course, they need to embrace their uniqueness and seeing that and really accepting that they do belong and having this place of acceptance, because it's really, I think, trusting that when you're in that community and it feels right to you, just stop judging that. Just like accept it, accept yourself.
Yeah.
And the fact that you belong in that community because you're there if it feels right to you. So they can also help people with this, obviously, same problem, helping those who feel like they are alone or don't belong to experience what it means to have that connection in that community, and how to learn to accept that when people want to welcome you in, how to still stay unique and be who you are, but allow yourself to be welcomed in to community. So last one.
My favorite sign.
So Chiron in Pisces is wound of faith, and there is a lot of spiritual energy associated around Pisces, a lot of psychic and spiritual type of energy is associated with Pisces. So Chiron in Pisces is all about a loss of trust in the universe. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not completely believing in this source and the oneness and all that that is. It says that those with Chiron and Pisces can have a sense of betrayal of the universe, like, this feeling that it just wasn't there for you when you needed help the most. And it can lead to a sense of victimization, like, well, it all seems to work out for everybody else, but not for me. Like, where's my support kind of thing. These are people that can somehow subconsciously even feel that they've just been dealt an unfair hand in life. It's just their fate. Everybody else has something I just don't have. They can feel that the universe is just set up this way. It's fair for some people, and some people it's not. And you're just one of them. And so it also recognizes that they're not the only one. They can see that other people also just got dealt the wrong hand, so to speak. That there's this uneven judge somewhere that has determined who's worthy and who's not of support.
Yeah.
And so this can lead to a certain sense of cynicism because, the deck's just stacked against them. That's just the hand I was dealt. Right? So this could lead to certain behaviors, escapism, avoidance, things like that, of just trying to, like, well, I just might as well make the most of it. There's not much hope here. It's just me. And like I said, they don't feel like they're always the only one. And so they could also become very people who are very empathetic to others that they see in pain and can actually over indulge in that, in empathy of pain, of really feeling their pain as well. And so it's really about, somewhere along the line there were beliefs about what's true and not true developed, right? And therefore, in order to kind of start to heal this wound, there's going to be a lot of deep, like, head on looking at what they really believe to be true and really asking themselves. I mean, it's funny how many people, like, don't just, like, ask, is it true? Like, we so automatically are always just like, that's just the way it is. Some people, I hear this a lot. Some people, he's just gifted with the gift of sales or the gab, or, he's just a guy who always, things just seem to work out for him. That's just the way it is. I'm just not like that, and it's just like, is that true? Is there something this other person has, or they were just energetically gifted from the universe and you're not? No, I don't think it's true. You have to ask yourself, is it true? If it's not, then what is true? So there's a lot of self-reflection involved here, because this is deep spiritual work for a person who doesn't believe they're trusted or they're supported by the universe, and that they've just been dealt a bad hand. So
sounds like a little bit like someone we know.
A little bit. Parts of it, maybe. So yeah, so a lot of self-reflection there, and then reconnecting to that sense of source, and maybe even looking at your life and saying, like, again, is it true? Or could you see places where maybe you were supported, you just didn't recognize it or see it? Like, maybe you were guided in the right direction. Maybe things showed up for you when you needed them. These things that, especially if you have this wound of not being supported, that you're like, well, you don't even think about it.
Like, actually, like, psychologically, you're more likely to remember, like, if you say, oh, I always stub my toe, like, you may have actually stubbed your toe like 5 times and not stubbed it like 20 times, but you remember, you're more likely to remember a bad experience than a good experience.
Exactly.
Which is why I don't always trust Yelp reviews or Amazon reviews.
That is so true. I mean, in general, people who have a beef are more likely to complain and speak up because they're fired up than people are like, that was a great experience. I'm just going to sit here and be happy. Or if you're mad, you're like, gosh, turn it on, mad.
Everyone needs to know.
That's right. So, anyways, gift then for Pisces. There is a lot of energy here of really of natural healing abilities, of being able to help people with that connection and seeing that their connection really is their source of service and healing to others, you know, because they really are going to have to heal it within themselves, this source of connection, and maybe integrating parts of themselves that they never wanted to recognize. Because I mean, who would if you feel disconnected from source, the universe, and you know all that, you probably don't really pay attention to your like maybe mystical or possibly even intuitive or psychic gifts you might have had, because you're like,
Yeah.
that's just how everybody is, right? I don't know. So I believe that takes us all the way around
Nope. Pisces is the end.
the zodiac. And so, like I said, if you look at these themes, they all boil down to essentially trusting yourself, loving yourself, accepting yourself in one form or another. So, that being said, when you can look at it and also compound it with the gates that the themes are around, it really helps you, I think, possibly fast track this healing, because it brings awareness to it. Like, you don't know where to look if you don't know where to look, but when you know where to look, then you know what you got to work with.
So when you talk about uh the cheat sheet on like
Mm-hmm.
Chiron and what and like in the gates, how do you know
Okay.
where
Well, there's there's a thing that astrologers use called an ephemeris, and an ephemeris is a basically a chart that shows you exactly where every planet, our solar system. I mean, I think they do one for asteroids too, but like I said, Chiron's big enough that they include it in the ephemeris, so that you can
planetoid?
see where each planet is in relation to us, to itself, all these other things, like way beyond my scope of understanding. I don't under. Let me be very clear. I do not understand things that are conjunct, sextile, you know, all these astrological terms of how the planets are in relation to each other. But
Okay.
I can read an ephemeris to know, you know, especially there's one that I will be referring to that will tell you what gate Chiron was in on what year, basically, because it'll be days, but it'll be years. I'll have to look through the whole year and see, you know, when it switches back and forth. But basically, you'll see that each year, like I said, there may be some years that there's two gates that
Hmm.
Chiron sat in, but there might be other years where there's only one gate.
Okay. And so then you'll look at that based on obviously what year you were born
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what
Yeah,
where
yeah,
Chiron was sitting. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And so even when I looked at, you know, or I've seen before, because I'm born at the end of the year of a transitioning year, so it can, you know, you've got to look at the actual ephemeris sometimes to pinpoint the exact time and, you know, day, but you know, but it's a good place to start looking, and I think it's a good place to start as we do this podcast, looking at gates and how they influence things in the chart. Sorry, there's a little
Hiccuped.
hiccup, the other little hiccup there. So, yep, go ahead and check that out. Remember, get your copy of your own body graph and start exploring. And then, of course, I don't really talk about it much on here, but I do offer readings of your chart. We can go over generalities, but if you want to get specific, you have questions, we can do that. Well, there's more information on my website about that. And yeah, so any other questions about Chiron today, Haley?
I don't think so. I liked learning the history of
Mm-hmm.
what no, Prometheus was the one on the rock.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Was his name Chiron?
Yes. Chiron took his place.
The Centaur.
Centaur.
Minotaur. Centaur. I think I combined Centaur and Minotaur. Still doesn't
Okay,
make
so
okay.
If there's confusion right now, listeners, because we recorded the intro part of this episode on a different day than today. So it's not like she can't remember what happened like 30, 40 minutes ago. It's a couple days ago. This is the magic of recording a podcast.
It's one episode, but 2 days of recording.
Yeah. Can't see that we're wearing different clothes and everything. That's why we don't do video.
So it makes sense that the planetoid is called Chiron when the centaur was named Chiron. I'm piecing it all together here.
Okay. Yeah.
I still did like I did actually like learning the mythology
I
of
thought
it.
yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, I learned about more than Chiron. I learned about Prometheus as well, which came up in my Netflix search last night. I was looking for things to watch. It's the movie Prometheus, and I'm like, did I watch that movie? I can't remember. It's sci-fi.
I think I watched that movie.
I read the description, but I'm like, that doesn't sound familiar. Something about they find the hidden evolution of man in something. It's a sci-fi movie. A cave,
yeah. I think I did see that because it feels very familiar.
The name sounds familiar. But anyways, okay. So yeah, so we'll just leave that there. We'll all go to explore our wounds. Hopefully learn from them and start turning things around. Okay, so thanks for listening today for us exploring this. And I just got one thing to say, Haley.
What?
Bye.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.